Hello again, everybody. Welcome to Touching Greatness, and we have a very special guest today. We're going to have so much fun. But, this guy's been on the radio and television for the Los Angeles Kings for over 25 years, but he will forever be known for the miracle on Manchester and the great technology that we have here on Touching Greatness. I'm going to use the best. Here it is, right there on my phone. We get to watch just a few brief moments of what it was about.
On April 10th, 1982, the Kings completed the largest comeback in NHL playoff history in front of their hometown fans at the Forum. Down 5-0 against the heavily favored Edmonton Oilers, the Kings scored all 5 of their goals in the third period to force overtime. Shooting! Hardy with a drive, the save by George Smith. And he scores! The Kings have tied the game with 5 seconds to go. Daryl Evans scored to complete the comeback. Shot by Evans, he scores! The instant classic was named the Miracle on Manchester, giving the Kings a 2-1 lead in the best-of-5 series. 2 games later, the Kings beat the Gretzky-led Oilers to advance to the next round.
Folks, that's as good as it gets. And here he is. Daryl Evans, thanks for joining me. I wish I had better technology, but I'm sure it never, ever gets old to watch that baby, huh?
No, it doesn't, Ted. Great to be on here with you, but great memories, and hard to believe it was 42 years ago.
It really is unbelievable. Let's go back to April 10th, 1982, and the circumstances against a Gretzky-led Oilers team that you knew that guy, and we're going to talk about your youthful experiences around Wayne, which I think are just fantastic stories. But to go up against him at that stage of his career, and as powerful as the Oilers were expected to be, you guys were huge underdogs in that series.
Yeah, you look at this, the season the way it went. The Oilers finished 46 points ahead of the Kings. The Kings got into the playoffs just because the Colorado Rockies were not as good as the Kings were that year. So somebody had to play in the playoffs, and we were elected to do so. Again, it was a lopsided look to the series, and the way things started out, looks like it was going to be a quick sweep for the Oilers. It was only a 3-5 series back then, and the Oilers got off to a quick start, jumping out to a 4-1 lead in Game 1, and it looked like it was just going to be play the 3 games and move on for them. But Game 1 was actually quite a game as well. 18 goals combined between the two teams, which still stands as the record for most goals scored by 2 teams in a playoff game. The Kings winning that game 10-8, and that was my very first playoff game. Something I'll never forget. Had 2 goals, 2 assists, first star hockey night in Canada. It was a dream come true for me.
I bet. Now let's go to this game on April the 10th of 82, where you're down 5-0 after 2 periods. And I want you to know, I worked a lot of the playoff games that year, covering for whatever outlet I was covering for at the time. But that night I was not working, and I knew all the people at the Forum, and I said, I brought my girlfriend at the time. I said, let's just go. They'll let us in. I couldn't get in the damn building. And I stood outside for the first period and change. And you remember a gentleman by the name of Show who used to stand at that door as we went past the Forum Club?
I sure do. Yep. Show was he was a legend in his own way there. Yep.
Exactly. He was a great guy. And I said, there's no problem. He's going to let us in. He kept saying, Ted, I can't let you in this game. And people started filing out. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And then it was 5-0. And here comes Dr. Buss walking past me. And I'm saying, this is not right. And I said, you can't let me in now. It's 5-0. He says, I can't do it. So me and my girlfriend left, and we turned the radio on, drove home, and we heard the rest on the radio. Like Dr. Buss did. I think he was on his way to Palm Springs or something at the time.
You are 100% correct. Yep. He left the building. Yep.
Yeah. So you go into the third period, and do you remember at all what it was like in the dressing room between periods there? Was there just, hey, let's just get one and whatever happens, happens, or you take us there?
No, you know what? After having split the first 2 games in Edmonton, we had a really good feeling about us. We weren't expected to win any games, so we had already probably accomplished more than most people expected us. But we also felt as a team that we owed it to our fans to, put on a performance. And let's face it, when you're down by 5 goals going into the final 20 minutes, you probably haven't done your job. So, you want to do something for the fans. And I
Right.
think that was the mentality. I don't think anybody really at the beginning of the period thought that it was possible for us to come back and win the game. But the mindset was to win the period and set a tone for the next game, knowing that we're going to play the Edmonton Oilers 2 nights later again. You want to go out there and you want to close the game out on a high note. But it got a lot higher than we expected it to be. And, that's why we're here talking about it, 42 years later.
It's not just your goal, but the goal that tied the game in the last few seconds. What do you remember about that?
Well, I remember being in the locker room at 9:56 of the third period. A handful of us got those 10-minute misconduct penalties for waltzing on the ice whenever there was those little altercations, and we
Yes.
were listening to it, in the locker room, and just listening to the clock wind down, and Kings in possession with the puck, this, doing that, doing this, and we're all sitting there. We understand how much time's left in the game, but somebody shoot the puck, somebody put the puck on the net,
Yeah,
and
right.
then eventually it goes in, and it was just it was an unbelievable finish to a game, or a third period anyway, to that point, to send it into overtime. But just the noise in the crowd for, and I know we lost a lot of fans left early in the game, but the noise that was made there, like the bleachers were above us, like underneath, where our locker room was, you could hear everybody kind of jumping and screaming, and it was just wonderful to be part of.
I don't recall you talking about that. You guys did your own little mini celebration in the locker room.
Yeah, there was, like I say, there was a few of us there, and I remember when we first went in there, a couple of guys, let's start getting undressed. At that time when we got ejected from the game, it was 5-2 with 9:56 left, and
Yeah, you're prepping to go home, right?
well, yeah, the guys are saying let's go on. I was more on let's keep the gear on. You never know what's going to happen. Being that we had a little bit of momentum, I know we still had a mountain to climb. We still needed
Right.
3 more goals, but it was just a matter of, I think, the way things were going. You could see the breaks going in our favor. We had a couple of breakaways. Mario Lessard made saves.
Yeah.
Shots were missed by them. It was just a matter of, was there going to be enough clock to be able to, to come back and complete the comeback and either tie it in regulation or, go on and win. But it took almost each and every last second of it. But we in the locker room, we welcomed those guys with open arms when they came down that hallway.
I bet. So then you go into overtime, and what was that like? Did you see a little bit of a depression in the face of the Oilers at the time?
Well, I remember, as I look back at it now, like you could see, as the Oilers built that 5-0 lead, the expressions they had on the face as they were scoring. Glenn Sather, just the confidence that they had. They just exuded confidence. They were a group of
Confidence or
young,
cockiness?
well, cockiness a little bit too. I mean,
Yeah.
they were one hell of a hockey club.
Oh,
They had
yeah.
all kinds of skill, and they could pretty much outscore any mistakes they made at that time.
Right.
So they had every right to be as confident as they were with a 5-goal lead.
Of course.
We chipped away at it a little bit, but I remember, just seeing the expressions later, just like almost disbelief, so to speak, like what they were just part of. It was incredible. But when we went on, in overtime, you've probably got the momentum in your favor, but it can be easily turned around,
Oh, yeah.
especially with explosive players like they had at that time. So you had to be on guard. And again, coming back in overtime, we weren't able to come out till after we were in the penalty box, so we weren't able to actually step into play till the first stoppage of play. So from the penalty box we came. So I remember watching just prior to coming on the ice, the Oilers had a great chance when Mario Lessard was out chasing the puck at his blue line, and I think it was Messier that had a puck, and he couldn't put it into the empty net. But when you see things like that happen now after the fact, you knew that the stars were aligning and things were going to work out for us.
Yeah. Now you're down to the last minute or so of the first OT, and you get a big face off, and you didn't waste any time with that baby, did you? When they say shoot the puck, that's what you did.
Back then, the face-off circles, there used to only be one hash mark. So you used to be lined up right against the guy, and generally it was a stick in your ribs and
Right.
an elbow in your face and that kind of stuff. And it was Kevin Lowe that I was lined up against, and he was so in my in my space, like
Right.
with a stick and everything, that I actually stepped back about 2 feet, towards, the middle of the ice, just so I could get away from them. And it paid dividends because Doug Smith, who was taking the face off, wins the draw. He's a right-handed shot, comes back between his legs. And because of where I was playing on my off wing, I just walked into it, closed my eyes, put the puck in the direction of the net, and it goes over Grant Fuhr's shoulder. And, the rest is, just a celebration. But for that split second there, it seemed like it was magnified when I separated from him, and then Doug Smith winning the draw and the puck coming back. It's just like you couldn't draw it up any better.
And there you were dancing all over the ice, and you guys were sliding down all the way to the boards in the other zone. And that must have been like that was your mini Stanley Cup celebration right there.
Yeah, I mean, and with regards to where the Kings were in franchise history, I mean that was a big celebration. Winning a game like that. I think there were a lot of incredible things done in that series that pay to the history of our great franchise. The first game having 18 goals scored between the two teams that still stands in the record books. The greatest comeback in that game there, the Miracle on Manchester. It was a special series to witness, let alone be part of. And it's something I'll never forget, and something I learned to appreciate more and more each and every day.
Yeah, ironically, with Gretzky being such a big part of the entire change of the NHL when he came to the Kings and all the Southern teams that came in and everything for a positive for the league. Really, I think it was that night, though, the Miracle on Manchester, that sort of changed the idea of hockey in LA, because you guys really had the focus after that in a different way that you'd never had before.
Yeah, and I think you need moments like that, in order to dial everybody in. And that goes right from, the players themselves that are on the ice, coaches, management, the entire staff, but also as a fan base. It gives everybody something to gravitate to, some common ground, something that you can share and experience and spread throughout, a greater area.
Yeah.
And I think the Miracle on Manchester, that particular game, let alone the series, did that. It did have that impact. I think it set the tone for what was coming in the next chapter, and that was with Wayne Gretzky coming to LA and becoming a King. And then that just took it to a whole different galaxy out there. But but it was incredible. I think in the early stages, hockey at that point, that was definitely big, and will always remain big in hockey history here.
Okay, so several years later, Wayne gets traded to the Kings, and if I remember correctly, that is the first year that you were no longer playing. Is that about right?
I think that was I may have retired over in Europe at that time, because I was over in Europe.
Okay.
But
out of the NHL.
Yeah, I was out. That's right. I was out of the NHL at that time. Yeah. So I had moved on over there. LA just it wasn't big enough for the both of us, so they forced me out of town.
I love that. So here's a great shot of you trying to check Wayne and knock his wrists off or something, whatever you're doing.
I like your words there. Trying to check Wayne. You're right.
It looks like a little bit of a hack and whack, whatever it takes sometimes.
But today, that would be a penalty for sure.
You'd be in prison for 3 years if you did that against Gretzky now. But so talk about your early days with Wayne. When we had a chance to chat recently at the Jim Hiller news conference, when he got the interim tag taken off and he's now the new head coach of the LA Kings, that you just have an unbelievable history with Wayne. And I looked it up. You're 2 weeks older than him. So you guys came onto this planet just about the same, a few breaths.
No, you know what? It was always special. I remember growing up in Toronto when Wayne was from Brantford.
Yep.
You always heard about this hockey, hockey great, phenomenal player, Wayne Gretzky. And we played against him when I was playing with the Toronto Young Nationals team. And the first time I remember when we got in a game with him, you knew he had something special.
Right.
And then I remember a couple of years later playing in the Quebec Pee Wee tournament, arguably the best youth hockey tournament even to date in the world. Where you're building it out with families, and of course, French being the prominent language at that time. You'd be traveling with your billet family to go to the Colisée to play the games.
Yeah.
And all you could hear on the sports station was, all the French language, and then the word Gretzky would come out. And the word Gretzky came out so often, and I didn't know exactly what they were saying, but we knew it was pretty darn good. And I remember when Wayne and his teammates were playing against a team from Texas. So you can imagine how long or where hockey was, 50 whatever years ago in Texas. I mean, it took a while to get going there, but 50 years ago, even to have a team come out of Texas,
exactly,
play a tournament in Canada was something real special. And of course, Wayne didn't disappoint. I want to say his team put up 20 plus goals, and he had close to 20 points. He wore white gloves. I remember sitting literally in these staircases in the Coliseum. It was jammed to the rafters, just watching the display that he put on. They eventually got beat out later. Our team went on. We ended up winning the Quebec Pee Wee tournament, and we actually became the first team that year to win the Quebec Pee Wee tournament, the City of Toronto, and the Province of Ontario championship. I captained that team, so it was real special. But that was the real first real encounter to see, where Wayne was. I think that's the year that he scored 300 plus goals in a season. It was ridiculous. I mean, the things he did were ridiculous, and to be able to carry on and do it, for the rest of his life was really something to watch. But definitely a great start to what turned out to be an incredible career for Wayne Gretzky.
Well, how about that? Is a great example, though, too. No matter how many goals you score, you still have to have one more than the other side, right? And here you are skating around with whatever cup that was in Pee Wee, and Wayne had to watch from afar.
And then we came together a couple of years later. I think it was actually the next season that the manager for our hockey team, we obviously knew well of Wayne, and for Wayne to kind of push his hockey career, he was looking to come to Toronto, and he was going to join our Young Nats team. And so we had on our team, Paul Coffey was on that team as well. And Wayne came over, but they looked upon Wayne as being an import, that you couldn't bring an imported player in. So they forced him to go up and play junior B. So here he was at 13 years old. He was playing against men.
Wow.
And I remember going to watch him, at that stage. And again, the talent that he had, the things he was able to do, it was magical to watch him. We also played baseball against each other at the same age. We grew up.
I wanted to ask you about that.
Yeah, we played hockey in the winter and baseball against each other in the summer. But it's on the ice, such a competitor. The vision that he had, definitely a player that just changed the game, the way the game was played, the way it was viewed, and now as we see where our great game is, it's because of pioneers like Wayne at that time that took our game from the greats of the Gordie Howes and things like that, and all the great hockey players that grew up in the 30s, 40s, 50s that that Wayne read about, and he idolized Gordie Howe, and here it is, young players idolizing Wayne Gretzky.
Yeah. What do you remember about the spotlight being on Wayne as a baseball player? Because the expectations as an athlete had to be ridiculous, even as a teenager. That's like, hey, you're supposed to be the next Babe Ruth too. No, it doesn't work that way.
Wayne liked to pitch, and he had some good junk. He wasn't like a power pitcher, but he had some good stuff on that ball.
Maneuver the ball a little bit, huh?
Oh yeah. I think he was throwing spitballs at us, but no. But he was definitely had a little bit of something on that ball. And again, the same competitiveness that he showed on the ice, he displayed it on a baseball diamond as well. I think he definitely picked the right sport. The path that he took proved to pay dividends in a lot of different ways, and it was great for our great game of hockey.
Okay, so how many hits did you get off of him?
That I don't remember. I don't remember that at all.
Okay, because that would be great, because you can get into his face. You say, "Look, I beat you in Pee Wee's, I beat you at the Miracle, and you couldn't touch me on the mound." That would really be fun, huh?
I wish I could say that without a doubt, but I can't answer that one. I can't even remember that far back.
Okay, well, you know what? I'm going to say it. So, Wayne, if you're watching, nobody said it was easy, right? You had his number, Daryl. That's all there is to it. We're with Daryl Evans, the Los Angeles Kings broadcaster. Can you believe? I think it 26 years you just completed.
Yeah, 26 years on the broadcast.
Wow.
It's been great. it continues to evolve. This past year, we did a simulcast with Nick Nixon and Jim Fox, and what a treat it was working with them. Nick's been my longtime partner on the radio. I've worked with Jim on the TV side of things for a number of years as well. But just being on the air with those two guys, and still in close contact with the great Bob Miller. The history, the stories about the Kings that we can tell as a team. I think our fans really appreciate, and like I say, it's an honor to work with those guys. And I've learned a lot about my position and what I do in my job from the great work that they did ahead of me.
Sure. So let's go over a few of those stories, because we're talking about not just years, but decades of frustration here in LA with the Kings, the almosts and the what ifs too many times, right? And finally, in '93, you guys go to the Stanley Cup final, and it looked like it was going to be a victory. You got the first one in game one, and game two came down. You had the lead, and then that little curved stick changed everything. And that was actually a pretty brilliant move by the Canadiens head coach at the time.
Yeah, a brilliant move, but a sneaky move.
They had, no doubt.
Yeah, there's no doubt, a little on the sneaky side. That kind of stuff doesn't happen today. Each team takes care of their locker room area. It's like a castle. You've got your own people, your own personnel, and they had some people infiltrate at that time there, and it was unfortunate, the way that it worked out, especially for a situation like that, and for Marty, to be the focus on that,
right.
Because let's face it, it's a team thing, but that gets magnified in a situation like that. And a lot of people said till the Kings won a cup, that was what stuck out so much in a bad way. So I think that helped relieve a little bit of that, and it was a long time coming, but I know the Kings fans here in Los Angeles, after waiting 45 years, that was a special time. And not only they got to see it once, but just a couple of years later, they got to see it again. And right now they're hungry. It's been 10 years, and they want another taste of that cup.
Okay, so that '93 series came after what I still think to this day was the greatest playoff series I've ever seen, the Kings and Maple Leafs. What do you remember about watching some of that?
Well, I remember watching it myself as well, and it was one heck of a series. The skill that was out there, the just the tenacity, the physicality, just they just punished each other out there. It was such an intense atmosphere, the entire series. And when you're looking at you've got Wayne Gretzky on the one team, and on the other side in Toronto's trying to get that back to the Stanley Cup for the first time since '67, and they're still waiting to get back there. All that stuff was magnified at that time, and when you have the best player in the game at that time playing on that stage as a sport, you can't ask for much more. I mean, the Kings and the Maple Leafs, they just drew so much attention to the game of hockey, and that grew the sport by in so many different ways.
Yeah, and to this day, Wayne always says Game 7 on the road is the greatest game he ever played, and that says a hell of a lot, right? Doesn't it?
It sure does, for especially as many great games as he's had. It's when he says something like that, and I think it was a part in his career as well that he really had to prove something out there, and going to the Kings, he knew he had to be that player, and that's what they expected when they got him. And as he's done throughout his career, he delivered, and he delivered in a big way.
Yeah, I guess you have to be really old like me to remember why the Kings even existed in the first place. And I think I'm the only guy in the world who calls the Toronto Maple Leafs long drought that it is the curse of Sawchuk and Red Kelly, because they were the guys that they won the last Stanley Cup for Toronto, and they came directly to the Kings. Red Kelly didn't even want to be a coach. I talked to him about it, and Jack Hancock talked him into it, and Terry Sawchuk was drafted first overall, and the Leafs haven't won since.
They're still waiting.
Yes, they are. How weird is that, though? You being a Toronto guy, you must have been a huge Leafs fan, I assume, as a kid, right?
Well, when I was a kid, there was only 6 teams, so we're
Right.
really a hockey fan. I think a lot of people have always asked me who's my favorite team, and I think at that time, you're looking at basically 100 players in the league. We had all the hockey cards for everybody. When we played street hockey, we were always, I'm this guy, I'm that guy, I'm this team, you're this team. We had the bubble hockey. It wasn't bubble hockey at the time, but it was tabletop hockey. And you'd change your teams in and out. And I think we knew all the players. Hockey Night in Canada was a big thing to be able to watch a hockey game, and it was special. I remember the talk about the Maple Leafs, having won the cup. Even as I was only 6 years old at that time. It's still something that I can remember going to school.
Really?
That the Toronto Maple Leafs were the Stanley Cup champions, and it's hard to believe that was the last time they did that.
It is unbelievable.
Yeah.
When you think of that hockey market too,
Yep.
I almost think of like sort of a comparison with the Chicago Cubs,
Yep.
where people are going to go to the game no matter what, whether you win, you lose, or you don't even show up. I mean, there's just something about that, and maybe there's some, at least over the decades. I'm not saying now, but some of that with the ownership group, where they're just saying, you know what, we don't have to kill ourselves to win. People are going to be here anyway. I've heard some of that from Toronto people. What do you think?
Yeah, there's no doubt that that they've had that mindset. Remember, with Harold Ballard and that.
Yeah.
Why don't you go out and get this player, go out and get that player, and kind of the words you kind of heard, the things you were being said were, I can't put any more people in my building.
Exactly.
So, why? And it's really been too bad. The Maple Leafs, I mean, they mean so much to the National Hockey League and the game of hockey. I mean, even internationally, I know the times when we've gone to to China, Shanghai, Beijing, over to Europe. This past year when we were in Melbourne, that Maple Leaf uniform, it's everywhere. It's everywhere, and it's hard. You feel for the people that have been supporting that organization for so long to go so long without having won.
Yeah. What are the odds, do you think, that the Kings would have won 2 in 3 years and the Leafs still haven't won since? I mean, that would
have been a good bet in Vegas.
Exactly. You talk about a future bet. Unbelievable. And then let's not forget that Daryl Evans played a couple of his last games with the Toronto Maple Leaf sweater on, right?
That's correct. I did.
Okay. So what was that like?
That was, it was kind of like a dream come true. I remember playing in the regular season when I got called up, and I scored my first game at Maple Leaf Gardens. And, as a young kid growing up in the city there, it's something that you think about and dream about, wearing that Maple Leaf uniform. So having done that, and then in front of my family, my mom and dad, my family were there, and you have so many family and friends watching the game. That really was nice. And then my last game was in the playoffs, and it was ironic that the game, I remember the Maple Leafs, they were up 2-1 against Detroit, and it was the second round of the playoffs. And I was one of the Black Aces at that time, and I can't remember who got hurt, but I was going to get a chance to play in Game 4, and that was at Maple Leaf Gardens.
Oh, wow!
So the Edmonton Oilers were already waiting to play the Kings in the next, to play the Maple Leafs in the next series, or the winner of that series in the next series. And we went out and we beat Detroit that night to go up 3-1. And I played in that game. I was on the power play. John Brophy was the coach and everything.
John Brophy, wow.
Yeah, everything was just rolling along real smooth. And the next day we had a skate, a little practice, and then we were going to fly to Detroit on a charter. And at the end of practice, I'm sitting there, filling around, and I was on my line. I can't remember what line I was on, but I was on a line. I was all slotted in to play in game 5. And at the end of practice, somebody threw a puck, and I went to make a quick turn, and my back just locked out.
Oh, no.
You go straight down on the ice, and I can't move. And
that's unbelievable.
Paul Gardner, who was my coach in Newmarket, he was there, and he kind of like pushed me. He goes, Evan, he goes, because John Brophy called everybody in to wrap things up.
Right.
Goes, get yourself over the middle. I said, push me in there. I said, I can't move.
Oh.
And so he pushed me over there. And then, I talked to the trainers. I said, guys, I'm in rough shape here. So I remember going onto the plane, like just stumbling, getting onto the plane. Probably looked like I'd been in the sauce all afternoon. And, but I said to the trainer, I said, guys, you got to give me the benefit of it. I said, don't say anything that I'm hurt. I said, 'cause I want to play tomorrow. I finally got into the lineup. I don't want out of the lineup. I said, but I will give you, I'll be professional about it. I said, I'll make sure first thing in the morning, if I can't go, I will let you know that. And of course, the next morning, I couldn't even move. I moved worse than I did the next day. So I proceeded to go see a chiropractor for the next bit. But the Detroit Red Wings won 3 straight to beat the Maple Leafs 3 straight games. And that series against Edmonton never came about. And that was the last game that I played in the NHL before I went to Europe and played in Italy and England.
Wow.
Yep.
So your last game was at Maple Leaf Gardens then?
Maple Leaf Gardens, yep.
Okay, so do you remember did you feel like a little kid when you skated out even for warm-ups, like, I can't believe this is happening?
Oh, yeah. I mean, just skating that building. I remember going to watch junior games with the Toronto Marlboros there. And
Sure.
it was special. Anytime got to go in that building, it was a treat. We didn't have a lot of money growing up, so go see the Maple Leafs play. That wasn't something that happened very often over all the years. One thing that I do remember about Maple Leaf Gardens was watching Team Canada play against the Russians there, and Team Canada won that game 4-2 in that Summit Series. That was a special game. But Maple Leaf Gardens, the old buildings, they always have a special spot with me.
Of course. So it all started in the minors here. Now you see this little picture. What is this? What does that bring back to, as far as memories are concerned?
Yeah, so that's Toronto's farm team up in Newmarket. Again, another chapter in the career. Great time up there, and again, being able to play in front of my family there was something that was special as well. They got to, my mom and dad used to come to all my games in youth hockey. My brother, my sister, so they were able to catch a lot of my games, and ended up when I was with the Newmarket Saints. That's where my son was born. He was born in Toronto there at the end of my career. So
nice.
Again, another special part of my life there.
Absolutely. Any specific highlights stand out from being down in the A?
Yeah, I got to play with guys like Bruce Boudreau. He was at center with us.
Tell everybody how good he was. Now he was a little, I guess you'd call it a scooter type, right?
Well,
and a goal scorer.
He was one hell of a hockey player.
Yes, he was.
He had soft hands. His ability to be able to move the puck. He was real special, and I love playing. I played on a line with him, for a while. And he was.
He froze up there.
What's that?
He froze up just a little bit. Continue, please.
Yeah, I say, I remember like even a little bit younger. He's a little older than I am, so I watched him growing up, and I admired the way that he played. And then, to be able to come and play with and against him, at that level was pretty special.
Yeah, he was a hell of a minor league player for a long time.
Yeah, he really was. Minor league player for sure. Yep.
Yeah, I maybe his size was the biggest issue, right? Where to go into the next level, a lot of the guys just couldn't compete against the bigger guys.
Yeah, size. Size had a factor, in it for sure. He wasn't the quickest skater, at that stage of his career, but again, such a cerebral player, like so smart out there. And his gift was his hands and his vision, like the way he saw the game, what he was able to do with the puck was magical.
He'll tell you to this day his hands are still soft, but they're like unbelievably soft. So that's not going to get it done. It's fun to see him on NHL Network now and then, right? Yeah. He's got a lot to say about a lot of things that he may not be done as a coach either, right?
No, you never. There's always an opportunity. I think one thing that Bruce does exceptionally well is he talks, he communicates, he friends you. And I think guys love to play for him. I know in all the stops that he's had, when he's been in the NHL, when we've gone and we've done our media scrums with him, he's just, so outgoing, willing to talk to us, give you more than, a lot of other guys want. He'll, of course he's not going to, spill all the beans there, but
of course,
I think he understands, what our position is, and we need something to talk about. So he gives you that kind of stuff. So we always appreciated the way that he treated us with the respect. And I would not say that he's done. I mean, he's a young enough guy. If he's got the passion to do it, I'm sure there'll be somebody who'll take a swing at him.
Yeah, it's always nice to have that little money dangling in the background too, isn't it? That always helps the cause professionally. Okay, so there's only one thing in this entire universe that people might think of you more of than the Miracle on Manchester? And when did this start, Daryl?
Well, I remember as a youngster growing up. Again, we didn't have a
Yes.
lot of money, and I remember getting my first three-piece suit that my family saved for, and I
Okay.
wore that with great pride. I remember getting a pocket watch from my grandmother, and and as I got into the NHL and became a professional, I tried to treat myself. Clothes were I always liked a nice suit, and then after a period of time, I like different stuff. I like stuff that kind of has a little bit of a shine to it, a little bit of a different look. I
So if
think,
you walked into a store, like there's one on the rack that like that's the one.
yep, it's kind of like that. When you look at the movie Dumb and Dumber, when they come out in the orange and the blue tuxedo, you can just that's the way my face goes when I see something like that. So it's yeah, I like something different, and I think the cloths that I pick out kind of speak or kind of show my personality a little bit. That I'm lively, and there's a lot of energy in what I
Yeah.
wear, and
Yeah.
I have a lot of fun. Like I have a young lady out here in California that makes my suits now for me.
Nice.
She used to bring me the books, and I'd pick out a swatch, and we do this and that, and then we talk about how she's going to put it together.
I know I've
And
asked you a few times, do you bring drapes from your grandmother's old house and she just makes something for you or what?
yeah, it's funny. They always frisk me when I leave the place. They wonder what I left with. But the one time when we went, the first time I went, actually went down to the garment district, the fabric district in downtown LA, and I went in, and the young lady that makes my suits, she's, fashion, fully dressed, full makeup, hair, makeup. I'm walking in short and t-shirts,
Right.
and we start walking around. She goes one way, I go the other way. And, they said, oh, I pick out a cloth. I go, hey, I yell across the door, hey, Brooke, come on over here. And the young lady that's helping us, she goes, sir, she says, I don't think that'll go with her hair color. I said, it's not for her. I said, it's for me. And she looks at me and she goes, oh, you want to make a tie? I said, the hell of a tie. Let's make the suit. So then I
That is
proceed to show
great.
her a few of the pictures, and she just goes, wow, those are amazing. So every time I go in there now, it's like, he's back.
So did she make this one? Because I have to wear my sunglasses just staring at it.
No, that one there. So with our foundation, our King's Care Foundation, when it comes to a lot of the holiday themed suits, and this one
Okay.
being for Pride Night,
Yeah.
we'll get some of these on different sites, and then we'll auction them off. I'll sign them, and we'll give a pair of tickets, and that money will go to our foundation. So
Oh, nice.
yeah,
Nice.
it's been a nice little avenue to be able to do that. And again, so when the opportunities come out, I like to support all the different events that we have, and
Sure.
all the different groups that come through. So yeah, that
Now,
one's
did you
that one's
choose this
probably one of
one though,
the,
or did somebody pick that for you?
no, I'm involved in all the pickings.
Okay, just
It's like
checking.
they'll throw the stuff at me, and I gotta give it the thumbs up. I gotta give it the seal of approval, and that one definitely drew it.
Oh, that is so great. And then there's, like you say, special nights. Here's a special night right here, right?
Yep, St. Patrick's Day.
Yep.
A little bit of green there. Had some fun with that, and you can even see that these suit makers, they're getting stylish. They're starting to bring out the bow ties that I like. So it's good, and as each year goes by, look for something to outdo that one the next year when it comes out again.
Do you have any other like friends or anybody in whatever, in even the garment business that say, "Hey, Daryl, you got to wear this, or you got to check this out"?
Actually, we just had an event here at the training facility in El Segundo, and I had a gentleman come up to me that makes vintage suits from the 40s.
Oh, wow.
That he wants me to come down one day. So I'm going to
Nice.
go visit him, and because I like that era, like pinstripe
Yeah,
checks and all that kind of stuff.
exactly.
So I will definitely explore that. So if you see me during the season with something that's roll back the clock a century, that's what I'll be wearing.
Okay. Dodgers playing the pinstripes today. There's maybe get some pinstripes. I've
Love
those
pinstripe.
old 30s.
Yep.
Those are classic. The double breasted, right?
You cannot never go wrong with that. I mean, that was one of my first attractions when, like with suits and that. I love the pinstripe suit. Yeah.
Right. Now you do so much with the Kings. We took a picture here several years back, and you always seem to be with all the beautiful young ladies, and I just happened to walk in by accident. But there you are. That was an annual affair or a regular affair, right? Cooking up for whomever at the time.
Yeah, we brought it on. I cook for the office. It's called a Choppy Q. It's one of the nicknames that I have around here, Choppy. That I go
Yep.
chop with everything. But
Okay.
I started that out actually in the car business after I retired from playing,
Oh,
and
okay.
now it's something we do regularly. I actually did it during the I think it was 2014 playoffs. That actually did it for all the media that we did
Okay.
out back of the
That's
rink
probably
there.
why I was there that day.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
and
it was pretty good food too, by the way. Thank you, sir.
it continues to keep improving. We expand. We've got a Cinco de Mayo menu with
Oh, nice.
carne and pollo asada. We've got burgers, brats, and dogs, and then we've got ribs and chicken. We've got tri-tip. Yeah,
Wow.
it's a big favor in the office. We cook for about 150 people, and it works out nice.
And you are so involved with the organization. You got something coming up here that please talk about.
Yeah, these are clinics. I've been doing these for 25 years.
Yep.
Every Monday through the summer. Now it's broken up in different segments, but we've got an adult workshop for 5 weeks, and
Nice.
we invite all levels. Then we follow it up. There's a 5 week women's workshop after that. I do a thing down in Simi Valley as well that'll start next week, and then all the youth camps that we do. If you look over the last number of years, we've been going to Vegas for 30 years, or we were going to Vegas for almost 30 years.
Yeah.
And, eventually we saw, an NHL team land there. So it means a lot when you see things like that happen, that you had a part in growing the game. We've also been going to Utah for about the last 7 or 8 years. Now there's an NHL team in Utah,
Exactly.
Bringing Anaheim, San Jose, all the teams that are out here on the West Coast now. I remember coming out here the first year in 1982, the first summer that I spent here, and we had a Kings hockey camp at the time. And I remember the kids that were coming out there about 15 years old. It was about the equivalent of a 7-year-old in Toronto at the time.
Right.
I vowed at that time that if I was able and I was fortunate enough to spend some time here, I would get involved in youth hockey and
Right.
teaching. I was a young player at the age of 8. I couldn't skate. I was a goalie. And when I was 10, before my 11th birthday, I started teaching power skating. So I take a lot of pride in doing that.
Excellent.
So in the last 52 years, I've devoted a lot of time to teaching, and never a day does a lesson get boring. I love teaching the game and love watching people's faces when they finally grasp how to skate and then evolve and start to play the game of hockey.
Okay, so tomorrow we got the Stanley Cup final coming up, game number 1 in Florida. And your old nemesis, the Oilers, will be there. And I like Florida for a lot of reasons in this thing, but the biggest issue is McDavid could score 5 goals in 3 minutes. So you never know what's going to happen. But when it comes down to this is the closest thing to clutch and grab as we've had in a long time. The Panthers are the most smothering forechecking team in the league. And I don't know how they do it, but their depth is spectacular that way.
It really is. I think, it's a great stage. I think these two teams have played exceptional. Florida having lost last year, they're trying to prove a point. They want to capture the cup. The Edmonton Oilers, you look at the two players, you're looking right there with Draisaitl and McDavid. They're game changers, just like the Messiers and the Gretzkys back in that time. And I think it's going to be a great series. I think, Florida, you probably favor them in goal a little bit.
Yeah.
The Edmonton Oilers, one thing that has really surprised me and is even more surprising as it keeps going on in the playoffs has been their penalty kill.
Yes,
It
absolutely.
was never a strength in their hockey club. And usually, you always hear that old saying, your best penalty killer is your goaltender. Skinner has made some timely saves throughout the playoffs. But I think the penalty kill for the Edmonton Oilers has definitely been a difference maker to this point. Discipline is going to play a big factor. I give the slight edge to the Florida Panthers, but I expect to see one hell of a series.
I said to Jim Hiller before you guys left for Edmonton, we went to one of the practices before game 1 of the series. And I said, if I were you, coach, I would fine or suspend any player that takes a penalty in this series because that's your downfall. And you know what? To me, if Florida could stay out of the box, I fully expect them to win 5-on-5.
Yeah, 5-on-5 is where the game has to be played.
Yeah.
Anytime you allow guys like McDavid, Draisaitl, and even take that whole group, that whole contingent on that power play,
Hyman,
Zach
50
Hyman, Bouchard
goal.
back in the blue line,
Exactly.
Nugent Hopkins. I mean, they've got some skill. It's almost like the Globetrotters out there, the way they move that
It's
puck
true.
around.
Yep.
Again, the utmost respect for what they're able to accomplish out there, because everybody has an idea what they're going to do. One thing I think the way you can counter that, and it's exactly what Edmonton is doing on the penalty kill, is being aggressive. I think the minute you hesitate, the minute you give any of those guys a split second of time, they're gonna tear you apart. So discipline will be a big factor. The more the game can be played 5-on-5, I think the more it favors Florida.
You're a great guy to ask this question. I have thought about this a handful of times over the last, I guess, couple of decades. I don't remember growing up in this game and then even decades later hearing the term time and space, but it is used now. And if there's anybody who has to be denied of that, it's Mr. Captain himself, right? As McDavid's unbelievable, and he's so quick. You can't really cover the amount of space that you need to block him.
No, you can't. And so what you have to do, again, guys like that, and it was like playing against Gretzky in his time. You never stop those guys, but you have to
Right.
find a way to contain them. So containing them is taking away their time and space. Connor McDavid, he's already a step ahead of you anyway with the speed that he plays the game at. And now his mind is at that speed as well. The players, and sometimes I think the guys that he plays with don't get quite the respect that they deserve as well. Connor McDavid's not an easy player to play with. You just sit there and say, get open, get your stick there. But
Sure.
you've got to get to those spots, and you've got to get there at the right time, and then he's going to get you the puck. You can count on it. But those other guys do one heck of a job at get to those spots, working the give and go, knowing when he wants the puck, when he doesn't want the puck. It's magical. There's some unbelievable chemistry that they have with that group, especially that fivesome that is on that power play.
Right, except for one guy. And I joke with Zach Hyman after one of the playoff games. He was walking towards the bus, and I was standing there. And I said, don't work too hard. All you do is stand like 3 inches from the goal line, and you never have to do anything. And he laughed his ass. He said he's going to come on this show when the season's over. So I'm looking forward to that. But, I mean, it's a little bit of Phil Esposito, the old days. Just stand on the doorstep and try to redirect or grab a rebound.
Well, you just look at like our group here, that the Triple Crown line. Look at Charlie Simmer. Look where his goals were scored from. Just somebody's got to do that, but there's a willingness to be able to do that and a know of when to get there and not overstay. And Zach Hyman, he's found something special playing with those guys, and he knows what his role is, and he's been very successful at it.
Well, you're a Toronto guy, and I'm a Los Angelino, born and raised. So you got to tell me, though, again, the term time and space. Did you grow up with that, or when did that start in your mind?
No, I grew up in outer space. No, I think time and space. I think probably evolved. Like I remember as we were playing, as a player, and I was a defenseman growing up. They always, that term was used by coaches, going way back. Take away time and space. If you give great players are already great players, the more time you give them, the better they're going to be. And I've heard from a number of players, whether the ones I've interviewed over the years or guys listening to interviews prior to when I got involved in broadcasting, was nobody likes to be rushed.
Yeah.
Nobody likes to be rushed. So taking away space or being rushed and time, taking away time, that's something I think that has gone way back in our game. I think each and every generation in different ways, maybe a different little phrase, so to speak, but it's all about time and space.
Yep, absolutely. I think that term was used more in the coach's room than it was in the media. Now everybody uses it.
Yep.
So is there speaking of the room, you think that King's room right now is saying we're rooting for Edmonton because at least we could say, hey, we lost to the Stanley Cup champs, or they don't like them and it's like, screw you, go Florida.
That's some people look upon it that if we can't win it, that's the team that beat us.
Right.
But I think because of the history, 3 straight years of being beat by the Oilers, they're not too happy with that team. And it's funny, the other day I was listening to a couple of different things, and I don't know if, they're talking about people in Toronto, and they're, wondering if people in Toronto are rooting for Edmonton because they're Canadian. And they're saying, I don't think so. I don't think anybody in Toronto wants Edmonton to win the cup either.
It's
So
probably worse than Calgary, I would assume.
yeah, exactly. So I think if anything, if you want to poll the fans would probably favor the Florida Panthers, and with regards to who they
That's
want,
interesting.
who they
Yeah,
want.
that's great. I
Yeah.
had Billy Jaffe of the NHL Network on the other day, and I asked him the same question. He says, "Hey, I'm not Canadian. I don't know what's going on up there." He goes, "But I got a feeling that Calgary was not too happy, and maybe even on the East Coast, they're not too. They could care less about Edmonton."
And definitely Vancouver won't be cheering for him either.
That's true. Well, that doesn't leave you a whole lot, right? Maybe Saskatoon is true for whatever works. I got to ask you before we wrap things up, how do you think your life might have been different? And this is, totally hypothetical, but if you never scored that one goal in the Miracle on Manchester, how do you think your life would be different? That puts you in a spotlight that no other guy could ever imagine.
Yeah, no, it was definitely, something that, very proud of, something I've learned to appreciate a lot more. But I think what that does is, as a moment like that allows you, it kind of gives you an introduction, an opportunity to engage in maybe different situations. And I've always told people that I think I'm more proud of what I've accomplished post career than I actually did when I went playing. And that involves my broadcasting, the things that I do in charities, the things I do in
Yeah.
communities. I've been president of our girls program, the LA Lions. I've been the commissioner of our high school hockey league. I've run our camps and clinics for 30 years. Speaking engagements. I'm involved with a lot of charities, the American Heart Association, PanCan, pancreatic cancer, Ronald McDonald House of Southern California, CHLA. Those are the things that I really pride myself in. And, I think a moment like that gives me a conversation. I think what it does is it bridges a conversation, something to talk about with, with people that aren't aware of it. So I think that has definitely helped me out. But I think because of who I am and what I am, I think the stuff that I've done has kind of carried its own weight, especially more so recently.
Yeah, extremely admirable. And if I would have told you 60 years ago that you and Gretz out there playing Pee Wee together and you'd be living on the beach in the South Bay and be an LA guy for decades, you would have said, what?
Well, I remember even being at the draft in Montreal when it was at the old Forum, and
Yeah.
we went there with our agents and things like that, and
Sure.
my buddies were sitting there. We were kind of keeping note, and Steve Luzik, drafted Chicago Blackhawks, boom, 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 and we're just rattling off the names, and I was the one kind of doing the writing because I had neat penmanship, so I was writing the names, and they were giving the names, and then I kind of I heard my name, but I didn't hear my name, so. I said, oh, D, Daryl, you got drafted. And, so I was writing it down, so I'm writing my name down, Daryl Evans, and I said, well, where to go? Los Angeles Kings. And I guess my first comment, I don't remember it 100%.
Right.
I guess my first comment was, well, that's a fine place to be playing hockey. And then here I am, like you say, 40 years later and having a time of my life out here.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'll give you a quick story. My first full-time minor league play-by-play gig was in New England. Okay. And some guy named Cap Raider, you remember him, I'm sure.
Yep.
Cap was our goaltender. Okay. That's how long ago that was. And I remember interviewing him in a hotel room for my next pregame show. And he said to me, how the hell did you ever end up here in hockey in the minor leagues that was the year after Slapshot came out, by the way.
Yep.
So we were in that league, the same league, right?
Yep.
And he says, yeah, LA to this is, he says, nobody cares about hockey in LA. I can't even imagine being in LA. And then he ended up, Barry Melrose hires him to be the assistant coach. And when he came here, I was one of the first guys to walk up to him and say, hey, what the hell are you doing here? You can't live here.
No, that's great.
Yeah, but remember, it was a different world then too. There was it was probably 75% Canadians in the league, and it was so different too.
No, the game has gone, so far. I mean, and here and with being a member of the Kings and the organization, just the things that we've done, let alone the entire league. We went to Beijing and Shanghai and China. Been with the Kings. We've been to Sweden. We've been to Berlin. We've been to Austria, London.
Yep.
This past year, we were in Melbourne. I mean, just to watch the way this game is growing globally, it's phenomenal. It's just, I mean, the sky's the limit. The NHL, their slogan, the NHL is for everyone, hockey is for everyone. They couldn't be any more true, because right now we're seeing people from all walks of life. So many female players right now. Now that we got a professional women's league, it just puts a smile on your face. Anybody involved in hockey, you got to smile.
Exactly. And really, it's so much credit. And it's to me, it's not overblown. When Wayne Gretzky got traded here, it changed everything.
Yep, no doubt about it. It's especially in a city like this where they really gravitate towards a star. And the Lakers, let's face it, the Lakers had all those star players, the Kareems and all that going way back. Magic Johnson was just coming around. So for the Kings to get a player, they had Marcel Dion, who was, obviously a generational player at that time.
Yeah.
But Wayne Gretzky attracted different people both on and off the ice. And into the building, the likes of the Hollywood crowd and things like that. Everybody, heard about Wayne Gretzky, wanted to have a part of Wayne Gretzky, something going on with Wayne Gretzky, the TV shows and all that, the night shows and that. Everybody wanted Wayne Gretzky, so that did wonders for our game. And it's just, you can just continue to see it keep going and going. And again, who knows where hockey would have been without him? I mean,
exactly.
You just never know.
I like to remind people too, because I covered almost every game when Wayne came here, and people forget. Yes, a lot of celebrities. Some guy named President Ronald Reagan used to sit behind the glass while he was president. He said, "I got to get tickets," and McNall made sure he was taken care of. I mean, that's unbelievable when you think.
Right? Stuff like that's unheard of. Yeah,
it is.
Yeah, it's just it doesn't happen. And
yeah,
just not in this day and age anyway.
Exactly. Well, it's all about the cup, and I want to have one more picture here and ask you what this picture means to you.
It really means everything to me. That's my mom there, who passed away 2 years ago. My mom watched all my games, as did my dad. They took me. They made many sacrifices for myself, my sister, and my brother. And to be a member of an organization and to share that Stanley Cup with them, I know how proud that made them. So that's something I'll never forget. And that's a picture that sits beside me in my bedroom. And
great.
I think about it every day.
How much did she have a chance to see you play during your career?
Oh, like I say, in junior hockey, when I played Niagara Falls, my mom and dad traveled to every game
nice.
in Niagara Falls. Most of the road games, they didn't go to Sault Ste. Marie and Sudbury, but they went to Kingston and all those other places. And then when I made it to the NHL, they got to see a number of games there. They came to LA on a number of occasions.
Good.
The times that I went to Europe, they came to England for a period of time when I coached and played. They were in Italy. And yeah, it's just where I went, they went. I always knew I had their support. And,
yep.
She continues to look down on me, each and every day now, and guide me in the decisions that I make. And I wouldn't be here without her.
Helen Evans, you did a hell of a job with Daryl Evans. That's all I could say. Fantastic. Yeah, everybody loves Daryl. I don't know anybody who's ever said a negative word about him, except for Gretzky, because you had his number. In every sport, you had his number. Daryl, I really appreciate the time. Let's have fun watching the Cup. And hey, yeah, the Jim Hiller era is upon us too, right? There's going to be some decisions to be made here in the next few months.
Yeah, things are going to happen pretty quickly now. You're going to get to a period here with the Stanley Cup final starting, a draft coming up in a few weeks. It starts there, free agency, and you get your development camps and things like that. So the Kings are, they're a very determined hockey club organization right now. They've got a lot to prove. They're definitely not happy with the way things went. Even though last year I thought they grew as a team in a lot of different ways. But it's all measured upon what happens in, April, May, and June. And the Kings 12 months from now want to be playing at this time of year. So they've got a tough task ahead of them, but they're not that far off.
They're not. And I think of one line that really is important during the playoffs. And I've heard this from every hockey mentor I've ever been around. Regular season is one thing, but in the playoffs, your best players have to be your best. And that has not been the case for the Kings, and that needs to change.
Yeah, that needs to change. And, remember when we go back to the, the press conference with Jim Hiller and Rob Blake. And these, the message that came out of that was the Kings have to learn to play uncomfortable. And so that means everybody. They've got to find another level. They can't be content to where they're at, and I expect them to do that. It's. I think last year was a real slap in the face. I think, coming into the year after the change they made, acquiring Dubois and all that, I think the Kings felt that they were poised and ready to take the next step and beat the Oilers, and that didn't happen. And now to see, the Oilers going into the final right now. It doesn't sit well with you, and that's kind of the way you want it. I mean, you don't want to be sitting there for the offseason. Go, oh, this was great, not a great season. Next year will be great. That's not the case. You can't be satisfied with where you're at, because till you win. Now, the only guys that have won together have been Kopitar and Doughty and Trevor Lewis. Other than that, none of those guys have been involved in this. So a new chapter has to be started. And this new group, the next core, the guys that are going to take this team to the next step, the Dubois, the Deneaus, Kempes, and these type of guys, they've got to pull that group together. Some of those guys now in those secondary and leadership areas, they've got to step up. They, like you say, best players have to be your best players, and that needs to happen when it comes April, May, and June.
Well, I like the way the guys bought in, though, to Todd McClellan's style. From a forechecking style, they're a little bit of I could call them a mini Panthers. They didn't have the depth, but they're, and a lot of kids, they're just growing into their games. But now some of them should be there, and they need to enter this. It's like, you're in the big leagues now, boys. Let's go. And that checking style is turned, and Jim Hiller wants to continue a lot of that. But you got to have the right guys to do it, and they got to buy in.
They've got to buy in, and that's one thing. The majority of these guys have done a good job at buying in. Everybody has to be on the same page, because when you do that, that's what makes it very difficult. And that's what really jumps out when I watch the Florida Panthers, especially in the series against the New York Rangers. Everybody was there. It didn't matter what player was on the ice, what number came over the boards. He was right in your face. They smothered the New York Rangers, just literally smothered them out there.
Yes, they did.
And when the Kings, they showed that at different times. Like if you look at the beginning of the season, they led the league in scoring. They weren't giving up anything defensively. They were just in your face. I mean, they win the first 11 games on the road. I mean, they went into some tough buildings. But again, it's consistency. It's not, you can't do it from, time to time. You've got to be there. And some of the young players like Byfield took a huge step last year, reaching the 20-goal plateau, almost 60 points. He's got to find another level. Kempe, career high in points. He's got to continue to score, and maybe even a little bit more. Guys like LaFerriere, a great, injection into the lineup. He's got to find another level. Kopitar, we all know what he brings each and every night. Deneau, if Arvidsson's back, Trevor Moore had an exceptional year, but that's still not enough, because as to where they got. Dubois has to definitely be an impact player.
Big time.
Kevin Fiala, I thought, grew quite a bit. I think the injection of a Brandt Clark on defense is going to change the offense, and I think that's going to help those offensive players. They're going to get pucks in more favorable situations, as opposed to the dump and chase and retrieve. They're going to be set up for plays.
And maybe a better power play because of that as well.
Yep. Better power play because of that. Again, he's a creative player. He thinks the game with this new generation, and that's what the Kings need. The guys that we saw a little bit, Turcotte last year, he's a former first-round pick. He's got to step. He's got to find a way to be an every-night player. Akil Thomas came in, had a good little stint as well. So those players, they've got to find their way into the lineup. In that youthful injection, I think that sparks the older players as well. They provide some of that energy. Yeah, of course, you always rely upon guys like Kopitar and Doughty. You put them in all the critical situations, but you don't want to have that be your only options as a coach. You got to sit there and say, okay, we're going to play again tonight. I'm going to give this kid a crack.
Right.
Pull Kopitar back a little bit. Pull Doughty. Those are the guys that you want, because you're going to need them April, May, and June.
Exactly.
Some of those other guys can learn along the way, then you become a better team.
And Florida, besides the fact that they have, a couple of totally outstanding players, of course, their depth is just spectacular. So you really need third and fourth lines these days if you got a realistic shot to win it.
Yeah, you need all of that, and health-wise, because of the the way that the injuries, the load management. You've got to, at the beginning of the year, and I remember even Daryl Sutter talked about it back in 2012, 2014. You need 10 or 12 defensemen that can play in the NHL. You need 5 lines. I look at an NHL roster now, and I know there's 20 guys dressed for a game, 23 in your active roster. You've got to have 30 guys in your organization that can play in the NHL. If you don't, you're in trouble.
Yep.
You're in trouble.
It's a depth game now, no doubt about it. And the Black Aces, they better be ready to play at any time, right?
That's like if you're a young kid coming up today that maybe is a fringe, you're not sure if you're gonna make it or not. You have no better opportunity than right now because you're going to get a chance to play. Whether you start in the minors or you're coming out of junior, coming out of college, you're going to get a chance to play at some point if you're close.
Yeah. Well, Daryl, I appreciate the time. That was an hour that flew by. I love the old stories. I could talk forever about that stuff. But again, have a fantastic summer. Appreciate everything. And hey, go Kings, go.
Go Kings, go, Ted. Appreciate your time and all the work that you've done. Had a great friendship with you for over the years and look forward to staying in touch. And some great years coming ahead for the Kings and for yourself.
It ain't over till it's over, baby.
We're just beginning.
You got it. All the best. That's Daryl Evans of the Los Angeles Kings. Thanks for joining us here on Touching Greatness. We will do it again very soon. And hey, Stanley Cup Final starts tomorrow. Let's go.